What's up, pro wrestling fans? Welcome to Nation's Corner. I am Front Row. Joining me, as always, is Debhausen, the great and powerful, and our special host tonight, all the way from the great state, California, Trenda. What's up, Trenda?
Hi, guys. It's great to be on again. It's been a while.
Yeah. What's going on with you guys?
Oh, not much. Had, busy week at work, watched a lot of wrestling. So it's been a pretty good week. I've enjoyed it.
Nice.
Yeah, same here. Been back in the field. Pandemic is still happening, but they're mandating us to go back into the office a couple of times a month. So I'm actually getting out there in the world and going back to the old job. So yeah.
Wow.
But it's like 150 out there now?
Yeah, it was only like 147 this week. So,
Hey, Front Row, don't forget HJM in the back corner here.
HJM is with us. That's right. I always forget to mention Hijacker Mike because Hijacker is not on screen, but he is there. He's always lurking.
Smoking cigars and watching.
I went to get coffee in my kitchen this morning. Hijacker was just there.
Just posted up waiting.
Oh, damn.
Waiting for my cup of coffee.
Yeah, it's been an eventful week, but I want to touch on a couple of fun things first. For those who have been paying attention, Mission Pro posted some videos this week, some stuff that we taped while we were in Texas for the last pay-per-view. Candice Cordelia, shout out to Candice Cordelia because she did a bunch of the interviews, and it was a legit 107, and she was there in a blazer and boots and jeans, just killing it. But she did some interviews. I think a few of them are still going to come out, but she did an interview with David Ali and JP Harlow that was released today. I got to make my debut as an official security guard, a pro wrestling security guard. So I can either thank or blame Brian Rosa for that, but it was a fun moment.
I say blame.
If you watch the video, it's definitely a blame situation.
Yes.
Oh, so I apparently have an admirer in the chat. So it's a fun thing. Also, I wanted to remind folks, if you're not watching Thunder's vlog, her taco vlog, she does some really amazing interviews with people. The one with Lance Archer from a couple weeks ago was really deep, really, really good. And this week she did one with Leva Bates, and I've never really seen a whole lot of interviews with her. And she has an incredible story about, her hearing loss and about her journey through to wrestling and a lot of the other stuff that she does outside of wrestling. So definitely go check those out. And this one was at a restaurant, and it was really hot there. And I guess there was like 10 or 15 people at the table. So you could kind of hear some of the background conversation, and it really felt like you were there having dinner. Like it felt like you were sort of in the conversation. So cool thing to check out.
That's one thing I do like about her vlog is that it's not a formal interview. It just feels like you're watching friends hang out and talk over a meal.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
It's fun, and she's gotten some interesting stories, like you said, out of people that they might not have naturally brought up during a regular interview.
Yeah. And I know you had talked about some of the stuff that you had seen this week. I know you're in the middle of some interesting reading or listening, I should say.
Yeah. So I have been listening to Mox's book on Audible. So it's the audiobook narrated by him. So I think I've convinced Trenda to go get it too on audio. I highly recommend.
The thing about it is I have the book. I'm getting through it. I'm about halfway through the book. I'm not as far as you, maybe because I'm not listening to it. I'm a little old school glasses, but I have the book. I just, the idea now that you've told me on Audible that it's his voice giving his story.
Yeah.
I can't wait to just start from the beginning and fall asleep that way.
Yeah, I highly recommend getting it on audio just because, I find it's easier to listen to things for me personally because the most time that I have available to listen to things is when I'm at work. So I listen to Busted Open every day at work in my headphones while I'm working. So after Busted Open is over at noon, I can, listen to other podcasts or listen to music or whatever for the rest of my shift. So I find it much easier to listen to things rather than either read or, I listen to some podcasts instead of watching that particular show on YouTube just because that's the time that I have. But I highly recommend to get this book on audio just because it is his voice. So you don't feel like you're reading a book. You just feel like you're just listening to him tell stories. So it's really awesome. I played a couple quick clips for Seth earlier this morning, of when he gives details of his debut in AEW. So that was really fun. And just, listening to it in his own voice is the best.
And falling asleep to that. That was my
falling asleep to his voice. And you dream about him. See, there you go.
Right, y'all are strange. Y'all are some strange people.
Maybe strange to you, but okay.
So that's one of my biggest recommendations. Also, he fell down again, Mr. Sledge here. I recommend Sledge's Twitch. He streams on Twitch Monday through Friday. Eastern time, it's usually like 1:30 to about 7:30. And he watches wrestling. So every day of the week is kind of categorized. Right now on Wednesdays, we're going through watching old WrestleManias. We started at 1, I think next Saturday or next Wednesday. I think we're up to 9 now, 9 or 10. It's a good opportunity to watch a bunch of old wrestling, current wrestling, different promotions, whatever we feel like watching. So I've been watching a lot of wrestling. That keeps me occupied during my afternoons at work when there's not much going on. So I highly recommend twitch.tv/sledge805.
That's cool. And you touched on Busted Open, and I have to mention a couple of things from Busted Open. First of all, shout out to Tasha Steeles, who was a co-host.
Oh my God. Yeah, she
was terrific
awesome this week.
Yep. And of course, on the Thunder Hour this week on Friday, Dave stepped in it again. I don't know what happened or what goes through his brain, but now he's found himself in another situation where he's challenged Thunder not only to a match, but to a no DQ match. Yeah, I don't understand. I know maybe we need to get a casket, or I don't know. We have to make arrangements.
This might be the last time we ever interact with Dave. If you think about it, this might. So everybody who's able to make the match, whenever it comes up, we all love him. I'm a Dave LaGreca girl, but
I am too.
This might be our last time to ever get to see him. I mean,
I don't know what he did. I don't even know how it happened, but all of a sudden he was yelling at her and calling her honey. And I was like,
oh when he said honey.
Oh no.
It was over.
Yeah.
And the great part
John is right. Dave's gonna die. Dave's gonna die.
The great part about that interaction is the whole time Thunder is laughing. And Mark said, why are you laughing? Like, this is your funeral. Like, what? Why are you laughing? I can't.
It wasn't just this good laughing. So when Dave mentioned a no DQ match, the joy on her face, if you watch the clip, she gets physically happy about this whole thing.
She said it. She said, this is
and then
my
Mark's
thing,
just
David.
like, what is wrong with you? And Gabby's just sitting there like, this isn't happening.
So I have a feeling whenever this match is advertised, we don't know when this is going to be, but I think there'll be a bunch of people traveling to Texas to see this.
I hope so.
We were there for the, we were there for the first
for the beginning.
Might
as well be there for the end. And might I say, Izzy, get ready because Dave always says you're going to take over the show. It might be a little sooner than you thought.
I think she's still in
Yeah.
school.
Yeah,
Well,
she's
not right
gonna
now,
finish
but-
out school first. I don't think her parents will let her get off that easy.
Yeah. She'd find a way. Izzy would find a way to do both, I'm sure.
Oh,
can do it.
yeah, you know, she'll
Anybody
be
can do it,
broadcasting
she
the
can
show
do it.
from the ladies' room at the school.
Something like that. And I also wanted to thank Karen Peterson for joining us last week. She was a great guest. We got a lot of good feedback. And I think at some point in the future, when there's some more New Japan or Stardom or Pro Wrestling No or some of the more, some of the exciting Japanese content, we'll probably have her back on
Yeah.
to talk about that. And there's other folks, in the nation that Trenda included who are New Japan fans. So
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that interview last week. Just her perspective on everything, because I love New Japan, but she knew so much and so many details. I was almost jealous.
Yeah, she was definitely very informed and everything. And that was great for me because, I know some things about New Japan and the talent over there, but I don't really follow their show much. I just know what I see on Twitter. So it was great for someone like me to kind of get informed on more things before we watch Forbidden Door.
Yeah, and we have to thank Neil and Ezra too for jumping on because they're the resident experts, along with Trenda and John and a few other people. But I would have been lost, and I appreciate them jumping on and guiding us through that.
Yeah, and quick shout out to John from South Jersey because he's been going to a ton of indie shows in the area recently. So it's always good to support your local wrestling.
Yep, and the last shout out I have is I want to thank R.A. Davis. R.A. sponsored the Nation's Corner at the Oklahoma City PopCon last weekend with Mission Pro Wrestling. He was there with Brian and Thunder and all the Mission Pro family people, and he was there all weekend, manning a table, promoting the show, promoting the Nation, and we got a bunch of new subscribers and a lot of new social media followers. So,
nice.
Huge thank you to R.A.
Yes.
So let's jump into. I wanted to just talk about a couple of things. I'm not going to go over the whole Raw card because it would take too much time. But pretty much the episode was dedicated to John Cena, and the little vignettes that he did with each person were not only funny, but made each person it elevated each person, and some of them were in character, some of them were not, were out of character. Mm-hmm. I don't think people realize what a loss it was when John Cena left full time with WWE because every time he comes back, it's a huge friggin' deal. So I just wanted to ask you guys, you have different experiences with WWE, but for me, I came back to wrestling in 2011, sort of at the end of his Thugonomics and all that other stuff. We were in the PG era at that point. And I've only ever seen John Cena as a megastar. I've never really seen him as an up-and-comer. So the entire time that I've been a fan since 2011, he's been at the top of the card. But I can tell you, if you go to a house show, and those of you that have been to house shows, when John Cena's there, he entertains the entire time. Before the show, after the show, all that stuff. So, Deb, what are some of your thoughts on your opinion of John Cena?
So I started watching in 2007, but I wasn't really watching religiously until I'd say 2010. And my best friend at the time, who's a huge John Cena fan, he's the one who got me into wrestling. He would basically it was an assumption that I was going over to his house for the Raw and SmackDown watch party. So that's when I started watching, really mostly full time. I only missed, here and there. And so, it's kind of similar to you. John Cena was already a star at that time. So I didn't, I kind of missed the Thugonomics era. So I started watching when he was, doing the Fruity Pebbles t-shirts and stuff like that. I was not big on him at first just because the kind of clean cut super kid friendly thing wasn't really my style, but after a few years you got to see a little more of his true personality showing through in his character, and that definitely won me over. The first live show I ever went to was in 2011 at Stabler Arena here in Bethlehem. And Cena had a match with R-Truth. And, you know, for those of you that have gone to house shows, you know that it's so different from a televised show just because they're kind of allowed to have more fun and play a little more. And R-Truth and John Cena just had an obvious chemistry in the ring. And the crowd was chanting at R-Truth, "You can't wrestle." And Cena would they had a moment where they kind of looked at each other like, what the? And then they just started laughing. They were having so much fun with it. And seeing John Cena in that light when he kind of transitioned into more of, a senior roster member, that you could tell that he was just having fun. You can tell that his personality was coming out. His comedy that we know now was coming out. And now we've seen him in all sorts of movies, and now Peacemaker, where his comedy is just impeccable. So he's definitely won me over.
So for me, I've never really been a John Cena fan. Still not a real big John Cena fan. Don't get me wrong. I agree with everybody. Yes, he's brought in lots of money, and yes, he's made thousands of wishes. Not real. I want to say it like that, but I just, maybe because even though I didn't know at the time, I was feeling that way because I wasn't as smart as I think I am now. Your fault, Dave, Bully, and Mark.
Exactly, it's their fault.
But at that time, I honestly felt like John Cena was being forced on me. And then since I'm not really a face type of girl, like I gravitate towards heels, and he's like the ultimate baby face. And it's like,
yeah,
oh, you're so good. There's John Cena. He loves everybody and everything. And I started having kind of like the flashback. I used to think about when he first came out, how it was almost like a knockoff of Hogan, of the Say Your Prayers, Eat Your Vitamins. He had his little catchphrase, and he showed his big muscles, and he wore his shorts, and it was like, it's been a lot of debates and battles in my household, though, because my daughter Trinity, John Cena was the first wrestler to make her want to watch wrestling. So she loved him, and it was just, he was a draw for the kids. He was, he was the good guy. So for me, I mean, I understand who he is, his contribution, 20 years, don't get me wrong, is great and everything, but just like me wanting to go to see a match because John Cena was there, never gave my stuff for it.
Okay, so two things. I gotta share one quick story. We were at SmackDown. It was a SmackDown house show, SmackDown roster house show, and John Cena threw his shirt, and my wife caught it. And she was sitting down at the time, didn't expect it. It just came right to her. She grabbed it, and she'll tell you. The guy behind her reaches over her and grabs the shirt. And now that she's holding it, and they're fighting for this shirt now.
I hope she throat punched him.
No, but she did win the battle.
I would expect so.
He better had one.
And apparently, he was trying to throw it to the kid sitting next to my wife. And the kid is just like, he's like, I don't know, 7 or 8 years old, a little kid. And the dad's looking all dejected. So my wife turns and hands him the shirt. So the little kid got the shirt. And it was a happy moment. And you can see Cena's watching this whole thing. And he goes, all right. He just kind of looked. He's like, nods, and he walks away.
Okay. I got to share. Sorry, go ahead. Finish.
No, just my quick thought. All of the things, people can talk about Cena and the draw and all this other stuff. To me, the thing that he does the best, nobody can touch him on the mic. Like, that's literally true. Nobody. I don't care what situation you put him in. If he said a week or no time to prepare, I don't care who he's in there with. He's always going to have a comeback. He's always going to be witty, and you're never going to win. And I don't think you can talk about Bobby the Brain and all these other great guys who have been, some of the best talkers in the business. But I don't think anybody has ever been as good freestyle as John Cena. I don't think anybody could touch him. Not even The Rock.
The Brain, though? That's another debate for
Bobby the Brain had segments that were amazing, but he had his catchphrases and stuff like that. I don't think that anybody, especially now when you're on live TV in front of the entire world, they have a much, much bigger audience right now. And on social media, all of it. Like, I don't think anybody can touch him. I just don't.
I have something for you guys, if you don't mind. This
Please.
is love him or hate him, love him or hate him. He has enough said.
There you go.
Yeah, very true. Yeah. And I think it was definitely a, don't know what you got till it's gone kind of thing. That the fans did not appreciate him whatsoever until he was away for a little bit. And then kind of as a whole, in general, a lot of people were like, oh, maybe he was really that good. I got to share a story quick related to John Cena. My friend that I talked about that got me into watching wrestling full time. He was a big John Cena fan, huge. He had every single color t-shirt. And the live event that we went to in 2011, we were, I think, in the second or third row in the arena on the floor. And my friend was at the end of the aisle. And at one point he was wearing his red John Cena shirt, the red one. At one point during CM Punk's match, it was after he had had baby powder in his trunks or something, and he did a thing with the baby powder. And then the action spilled out outside of the ring, and CM Punk came and walked by us. And they did a thing where CM Punk was on the floor, and he kind of put his hand on my friend's shoulder to help pull himself back up. And so there's a baby powder handprint on my friend's red John Cena shoulder. And he was literally, I'm never wearing this shirt again. And he didn't. I can attest that shirt was in his closet.
I can't talk. I've had
for years untouched.
I've had moments. I can't talk, so I've had moments. I have a shirt with blood on it right now that I'm never washing. It is sitting in my. I'm not touching. I can see that one little speck of blood, and it better stay there forever.
Yeah.
So that's Briscoe blood, right?
That's Briscoe blood right there.
We incessantly teased him for being, at that time, he was probably 30, 31 years old and being a mega John Cena fan. We teased him like, John Cena's for kids. Like, you're a grown-ass man. You know, why?
Say about me.
We teased him so bad. And we would hang out in the basement, hanging out at night, drinking, playing pool, stuff like that. And he had a John Cena poster on the wall in his basement. And one night when we were drinking and we were making fun of him for liking John Cena, because he's a grown adult, he got fed up with us making fun of him and tore the poster off the wall. There's a video out there somewhere. But yes, there's my great John Cena moment.
That's what I got out of that story that y'all mean.
I think at the end of the day, a lot of people can agree he's on the Mount Rushmore for not only the amount of money he's made, but the amount of wishes he's granted, the ambassador he's been for the company. And I've never heard anybody have a bad interaction with him. I've talked to a lot of people who have worked with him, met him, just seen him at shows. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say anything negative, like never. So that's super rare in wrestling, or really in life in general. So that speaks to, I think, the quality of person that he is.
Yeah. I think he's right up there with Rock, honestly, because he's, been in mega movies. He's venturing into more of, the business side of things. So, yeah, I honestly think he's right up there with Rock at this point.
Yeah, I definitely think he's in that conversation. So I know I want to make sure we finish on time so folks can get over and watch Money in the Bank tonight. But I wanted to talk just real quick about a couple of things from Forbidden Door. Will Ospreay and Orange Cassidy was magical. Like, I was honestly, like, I had high hope for that match. I knew we talked about it on the show last week about how we thought it might be sort of the show stealer. And in my mind, 100% was. And I know Busted Open broke the pay-per-view down like all week. They talked about it at length. But I just think, and we've talked in our group about how we'd like to see Will Ospreay signed to a major company here in the United States at some point, just because of the level of talent that he's become.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Orange Cassidy has impressed me since the beginning of AEW. We were there at the third ever AEW Dynamite in Philly, and I cannot remember for the life of me who his match was against that night, but that was the match where he had his hands tied behind his back and did the whole match with his hands tied behind his back, and it was just insane and impressive. The fact that he could still wrestle like a pro in those situations where his hands are tied behind his back or he has his hands in his pockets. I called it that match was going to be the show stealer. I called it. I said that.
You did.
And it really was. It really was. So yeah,
it was really interesting. I love Orange Cassidy. I love his little theatrics. It's such a smoothness to him. But at the same time, like we have to get, like you said, we have to get Will Ospreay over here. I've actually had the pleasure and the honor of seeing him live in person when they had New Japan here at the Coliseum last year, and he's amazing. I mean, technical wrestling, he can high fly, he can ground and pound. He's like all the above. So yeah, I totally agree. I love Will.
Yeah, and I know he's had some issues, some stuff he's had to deal with, and hopefully that's all behind him. But the other match I wanted to talk about, and of course, because because and I Dave and Bully only spent 36 seconds on this match earlier in the week, and it was the women's match. And it was, I think it's easy to get overshadowed on a card that had such big names and big technical matches, and there were surprises and all this stuff was going on. I understand all that. But in hearing Thunder Rosa talk about on Busted Open how impactful and how much pressure there was on both women to produce in this match and to deliver on a card with the people that were on that card was incredible. And I thought that they did an amazing job in the match and in the post-match promos and everything that they did. They both brought their Japanese strong style to the table for the match, both being former champions in Japan and in different promotions. So I wanted to give props to both women, but Toni Storm, to me, we got to see a little bit of what she can do. We got to see a little bit of the Japan Toni Storm when she was in NXT UK, but I don't think we really got to see a whole lot of that in WWE. And now I think in AEW, we're going to see that version of Toni Storm.
I really hope so. I like Toni, and I think her talent showed in NXT, but just not enough. It kept you wanting more. So, I hope that she's given the opportunity to shine. I hope that, she takes this opportunity and, really, really runs with it.
Yeah, I agree. I remember when she first debuted over in AEW, I was so happy because she is such a great talent that WWE lost. And not just in NXT, she was a part of NXT UK. If I'm not mistaken, she was a champ at one time. Mm-hmm. And I remember watching, and I say remember because unfortunately NXT is no longer a part of my weekly views, but just watching her in NXT UK as the champion, she was one of the baddest women there. And to see her in AEW, knowing what she can do, knowing that she really can just wrestle. She's a great wrestler. And I hope they do a lot more with her. I hope they do a lot more with the women in general, but I hope she gets highlighted a lot more and we can see her she already, tried and failed against the best. We have Thunder as our champ right now, but maybe, she can go against Jade or, take that. I love to see her as the TBS champion representing, the company in that sense or something along those lines, because she's definitely somebody you can get behind and she's believable and she's credible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and in the post-match promo, Thunder talked about how much respect that she had for Tony, and now fast forward to this week, we're now gonna see the team up of Thunder Rosa and Tony Storm, Thunderstorm, which obvious, but why not, right?
Thunderstorm, let's go.
So I think that match is next week. I think they're facing Nyla Rose and Marina Shafir, so that'll be an interesting matchup.
Yes.
So I'm excited to see. I wanted to get your opinion because I feel like both the AEW Women's Championship and the TBS Championship are being highlighted right now. And I've been pretty vocal. I know we've been pretty vocal about them not featuring women's storylines that are meaningful. Mm-hmm. And I feel like they're starting to go that way. Are you guys as optimistic as I am or no?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I think there's been like a shift a little bit. I hope that, Tony Khan has kind of heard the complaints and criticisms. I hope that, maybe some people that are in that circle have kind of voiced those opinions to him. So I saw a lot of things, not just the women's title picture, but a lot of other things that I was kind of like, okay, it seems to be going in a really good direction now.
Yeah, I hope so. It's crazy to even sit here and think after so many years of leaving the era of bra and panty matches that we're actually still having to beg to see women wrestle. So, I mean, just with that concept, I hope so. I know a lot of other promotions, we really kind of have to beg everyone right now to highlight women for the most part in all the major productions. It's like women are forgotten thought in wrestling for the most part, but Tony is stepping up. You can see, with Jade, especially with Thunder. I mean, that's your champion. You would think you would want to have your champion on and highlighted it and promoting your company. So yeah, I see where it's going. I just hope it continues.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And we see the crowd reactions when certain people come out. When Thunder comes out, she gets a huge reaction.
Exactly.
And we're starting to see that a little bit. I'd like to see Jamie Hayter maybe do more stuff on her own because she's an incredible talent. And of course we're seeing Athena now, and my guess is that she's going to stay engaged in that TBS title story, and I'm here for all of that. I think Athena.
I hope so.
Yes, yeah. I'm so happy she's there. Congratulations to her.
Yeah, exactly. One thing I wanted to ask you, and this kind of bothered me, and I know Bully talked about it on the show this week, when Moxley was bleeding in this match, like we never saw like where he got hit. Like all of a sudden there's blood, and there was a lot of blood, and on Blood and Guts there was a lot of blood. And I understand that match was supposed to be what it was. To me, I feel like AEW is using blood too much to the point where it's desensitizing the audience and not having the impact that it would normally have. They did save it for the one match on Forbidden Door, which made sense. I was happy to see that.
Yeah.
But there was no indication about where the injury happened, and it was too much. So how do you guys feel about the use of blood in AEW right now?
Well, to your point with that segment, I can remember watching it, and I'm not sure which one of the commentators said it, but I know once Mox got cut, they were basically saying, the cut from the previous pay-per-view I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, seeing the band.
Yeah, they basically said that the cut from Forbidden Door had opened up. Mm-hmm. That's literally what the commentator said. Now I don't know if that was something that they said to kind of let us as the fans and the crowd understand what or why he was bleeding, but they did mention that. So I kind of, when I heard that, I kind of felt like it was basically just an old cut, that because he's Roman, it could have been, the sweating, the moving around, all of that could have just opened up the cut, or even a brush up against at some point in time. However, just because this match was blood and guts is what I expected. It was blood, and they were gutsy. I mean, I guess that's what you mean. That's how you want to narrow it down. I want to see the guts going down, you know, but only because of the way they advertised it. I think it gave you exactly what it was supposed to be.
Yeah. I think I don't know, it might be becoming a little overused. Sledge on his Twitch jokes a lot of times that, you know, Mox just likes to bleed, like he can't do one match without, you know, bleeding his face off. And you know, it's true. It's true. He and I don't know if you've gotten to this part in his book yet, Trenda, but there's one part where he very passionately talks about how much he loves to bleed, like how much he loves the violence in the match. It makes him feel alive. He loves the sound of the blood like dripping on the mat, like very descriptive.
Very
and so you know, I get that. And I think that AEW in a sense is, you know, catering to their core fan base, because I think AEW's core fan base is the ECW generation. You know, me and Seth were kind of talking about this earlier. We're the ECW generation. We're the generation that, like, for the most part, we started watching wrestling or became huge fans during the ECW or like Attitude Era, Ruthless Aggression era. And, you know, that's when a lot of fans, like when WWE switched to the PG era, a lot of fans, myself included, were a little turned off and became slightly more casual fans as time went on. And AEW is bringing that back, of the wrestling that made us become a fan. I think the blood is starting to desensitize us a little bit more because it's expected, and it can't happen every single match, because if it happens every single match, you're going to have less of a reaction to it. Like I said, I think they're trying to cater to their fan base.
Not just the fan base, but this is Mox, like, just to say, kind of piggyback a little bit on what you said earlier, this is Moxley's thing. You know what I mean? This is what Dean Ambrose wasn't able to do, and what he was so happy to leave WWE to be able to do. So again, I mean, I guess it would also depend, like, who's in the match. Yes, they do have a lot of. They do it with Darby. They do it with a lot of the wrestlers. But when Moxley's in there, like, this is his thing, his blood, his tax. I mean, you saw he pulled out glass that he had already crunched up, ready. You know, this is what he's ready to do. So just on that note, but if it's just like everybody all the time, of course I'd feel that way. But because it's him, and this is his game, and this is what he does, and this is part of who he is, it doesn't really bother me.
Okay, but Moxley aside, we're seeing it in a lot of other people. Kingston and Britt Baker, and like every week it's sometimes 2-3 times a match. Like Dustin Rhodes bleeds almost every time he wrestles. Cody was bleeding every time he wrestled. He's not there now, but there's so many, Sammy, and it just, you go down the list of all the people who bleed like pretty regularly, to the point where if you have 2 or 3 matches on a 2-hour show where there's blood, I don't care. Because to me, the use of blood is, I have to feel like the injury is real, because I'm trying to suspend disbelief. But when I see Mox roll out of the ring, not bloody, not even getting hit, he disappears off camera, and all of a sudden there's blood all over his face. I'm like, well, now I can't suspend disbelief. We know he just cut himself. There was no.
Yeah, we know. As Tommy Dreamer would say, "Ga ga ga ga."
But you gotta make it look real. And sometimes, like when Brock bleeds, he almost always hardways, always, and he'll go against the post, or sometimes he'll just get kicked in the head. Like Roman will just hit him and he'll bleed. So like I understand the use of it to a certain extent, but I feel like they're heading down a path. I lived through the ECW era, and it got to the point where it became too much, and the crowd just wanted so much carnage that most satisfying them, and I hope that they're able to pull that back before that becomes an issue. All right, so let's jump over.
Hold on. I think it's been, it's been discussed. I've heard it discussed on different podcasts by different people that this generation of wrestlers right now just feels like they have to go over the top in every single match to get a reaction. We hear Bully complain and criticize about that a lot, that, they're losing the psychology in the match because the only thing they're worried about is doing those crazy things and having crazy bumps and crazy moves just to get a reaction out of the fans. And what are you going to end up with? Another generation of wrestlers that has CTE problems and foreheads that look like New Jack.
Oh, wow.
Well, and it seems like every week, there's more and more injuries. We saw how many injuries this weekend just in that one match. There was like 4 injuries in one match just on blood and gut. Right. So, yeah, I worry about folks. Obviously, we have friends in wrestling, and we want them all to live long and happy lives and not get crap. So, okay. So while we still have some time, let's go through the Money in the Bank card. And what I wanted to do is mention this because we talked about the women's divisions and other companies. If you look at this card, there's 6 matches on the card: 3 men's, 3 women's. All 3 women's matches are meaningful and have real stakes. 2 of them are main title matches, and one of them is the Money in the Bank match. So to me, I look at that and I go, okay, that's representation. That's correct presentation. That's respecting athletes and giving them equal time. Who knows what the match times will be, but if you look at the people that are in these matches, I don't think anybody's going to get shorted. So I look at this as like WWE does a lot of stuff wrong, but in this case, I look and I go, okay, this feels right.
This one right. Yeah.
I will say, I will admit when WWE does, do things right. I was at WrestleMania, and WrestleMania was freaking awesome. I obviously we know I have, some complaints and criticisms about WWE, but looking at this card, it is, really, really good matches. And like you said, it's an even number of men's and women's matches. And I think the women's matches, are possibly even more exciting than the men's matches. Totally. So, 1 or 2 of them anyway. So yeah, I think it's really like the card has been well put together. The matchups have been fairly well put together. So I'm looking forward to tonight.
I want to see Bianca and Carmella. I actually think that's going to be a hell of a good match. I think Carmella is great in her own right. She can talk the talk. She can, handle herself in the ring. But I think that she's going to surprise us tonight. And I think that she's really going to show us a Carmella we haven't seen probably since her first Money in the Bank winning, which the second one was like a week later because she had to redo it. But that's another story. But yeah, I'm looking most forward to that match tonight. Actually, I want to see Bianca against Carmella.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good match, but in no world is Bianca Belair losing to Carmella.
I never said Bianca was losing.
I am not a Carmella fan.
Going to be great in the match.
I am not a Carmella fan. I really never have been. She looks great. I will say that she looks great. There's nothing wrong with the way she looks. But I am just not. I've never been a big fan of hers. I don't think, like, looking back on a lot of the big wins she's had, I just don't think any of them were really like warranted. Like, we had a period of time where freaking James Ellsworth was helping her win every match.
You're bringing up old stuff.
We don't talk about old shit.
Okay, so yeah, I've never been a big Carmella fan. I think someone else against Bianca Belair would have been way more alluring.
Yeah,
but I digress.
But we got what we got. I'm trying to work with it.
Okay, so
doesn't mean I still can't complain about it.
let's talk about the women's Money in the Bank match, because to me this is the hardest one to pick. I can look at this card, I can look at the people involved, like Lacey Evans, Alexa Bliss, Liv Morgan, Raquel Rodriguez, Asuka, Shotzi, and Becky Lynch. I can pick at least 3 women in that lineup who I could absolutely see winning this and have really interesting stories and how they use the briefcase going forward. To me, the most compelling story is Becky Lynch winning this and then failing her attempt at a cash in and going further down this spiral of what depression or whatever she's going through, and then showing up like in sweatpants to the ring, just a mess, like just a. I think there's a great story they're telling here, and if she wins and cashes in and wins the title, you've ruined all this equity of the story that they're telling. So I'm hoping she wins and then loses the cash in.
I'm not hoping Becky wins but I think she's going to win. I think I'd rather see like Asuka or Shotzi win, but I think probably the better story right now is that Becky wins. And I'm really, really, really hoping to see the man Becky back, because the big time Bex thing just doesn't work for me. Maybe it's more alluring to someone who's 19 or 20 years old, but for me at my age, it's not alluring. I don't like the style. I don't like the attitude. I want the man back.
Well, if I had to pick, I'd pick Asuka. I really want them to elevate Asuka a little more. I mean, I know she's been coming out a lot lately, but still kind of not the Asuka that she needs to be. I mean, Asuka is at one point in time, she was just like conceived as one of the deadliest women in the WWE. And then now she's just kind of floating around and, winning some, losing some. So the fact that they actually have her in this Money in the Bank, again, I actually agree with Deb that Becky is going to win. But if I had a pick, if I get to choose, I could write the card.
If you had the
and my dark horse too is Liv, because Liv has a huge following now. She has a lot of support. Yes. She's come an awful long way in the ring in the last year and a half to 2 years. And I'm a big fan of hers. Like, I just think that she's worked really, really hard to become who she is now. It would be a fun moment. I don't know what you do with her going forward. The only other thing I'll say about this is typically the Money in the Bank winners, it's better when a heel wins, because the story that they can tell on the lead up to the cash-ins are usually more interesting. So I look at this and there's not a lot of bad guys here. It's mostly people that are either fan favorites. Even Becky's supposed to be a bad guy, but she's not. She's still a fan favorite.
Right. And so, I think that, sorry, but kind of on a little tangent, I think that WWE sometimes has issues with creating heel women. That a lot of the women end up being faces because the fans are rooting them on, and I think they have a difficult time sometimes making a heel woman that doesn't come across as too like catty or bitchy, and that turns off people.
The best one they've ever had was Charlotte.
Right.
So to your point, Deb, if you move over to the Ronda Rousey versus Natalya match, they've done some really interesting things on social media. They've gotten like fiercely personal with some of the stuff they've been talking about, which I know they're friends, but I don't care. Like, the stuff we're seeing on social media is great. I think in this situation, and we saw on Ronda's vlog, she and Shayna, they posted a little video of her and Shayna talking ringside before doors open. And Ronda's, what are you doing? Like, you're Natty's friend. Like, why aren't you here helping me? And she's going, oh, man, I don't know. Like, I'm sort of conflicted. But I think Ronda is a better heel. I know they're portraying her as a babyface, and her promos have been much better lately. She's speaking in her own voice. All that's awesome. But Ronda, people love to hate her, and she's really good at making people hate her. Yeah. If Ronda and Shayna, the only two 4 horsewomen who are left in the company right now, the MMA 4 horsewomen, if Shayna interferes in this match and causes Natty the win, and Ronda retains, you could really have Shayna and Ronda as legitimate heels, not popular heels, but real heels. So I think they have an opportunity to do something interesting here.
Yeah, I agree with that. Ronda is a much better heel. And Mrs. Front Row said, women tend to get shrieky and mean girlish as a heel. I totally agree with that. But that's where Ronda is different. Because when Ronda's a heel, she has the ability to talk like almost like a
Naturally.
Jake, yeah, almost like a Jake the Snake kind of style where she speaks slower, she speaks lower, and it comes across a lot better than mean girlish.
Yeah, I that kind of just like what I said. I feel like when she's a heel, I feel like it's her natural self. You know what I mean? Like it can act, not saying that she's a mean person in life, but certain people's personalities are different. And I think that heelish side really comes across more better because of the fact that it's really a part of who she is. She's a tough
Yeah,
female that was in MMA, and she was out there kicking butt, and she can talk mess, and she can, and this is what she does. She beats people up,
exactly.
and it's a lot easier and natural for her to just come out as a heel and be a more aggressive person than to kind of dial back and be that baby face and kind of take it in. I mean, I'm not
Right.
I'm not
And
really a
Trenda,
fan of baby face Ronda.
if you take all of that, what you just said, and now you add in the support and coaching of Paul Heyman, let's go.
Mhm.
Right.
And one time, I think that one time before, I forget which match it was, where Paul was working with her, I thought it was like the best. I mean, when she run, they need to turn her heel. Just they need to turn her heel.
Hey, shout out to Brian Rose in the chat. Brian and Thunder on vacation, which
Hi,
she
Brian.
mentioned. Show
Hey,
Have
hopefully,
fun on your
Hey,
mini
boo.
vacation.
hopefully you guys survived your hike, which I think it's like 120 out there. So hopefully you
Yeah.
stayed hydrated.
Get some
Woo.
water.
But there's just a couple more matches on here that I wanted to talk about. I think obviously the men's match is interesting. Everyone's sort of expecting Seth Rollins to win this. I don't know, man. Like if we look at the men's match, we've got Seth Rollins, Drew McIntyre, Sheamus, almost Sami Zayn, Riddle, and Madcap Moss. I would like to see Riddle win this because I think he had a really interesting, really good match with Roman. And I want to throw this out there because RA mentioned this last night when we were talking about this. It would be interesting if Riddle won the Money in the Bank, which you can cash in on any title, and he held it until Randy came back and they cashed it on the tag titles, which protects the Roman title, and now you have another way for them to become tag champions again. So I like that.
Also, I like the idea that was brought up last night with the fact that Randy, being whom he is, and the Viper, if Riddle has it, I think it was also RA who said that, that he could come back, does his normal Randy heel turn, and then or at least try to take the belt from Riddle as a heel. So I love that idea as well. Because at some point in time, we got to see the turn. I know Randy is the more logical person to do the turn and to be a heel. But if Riddle was a heel, that would be awesome too. But I mean, Viper time. So
So I'm a big fan of Riddle. I'm a huge fan of what he's been doing lately. It's been really great. He cracks me up when he comes out and just says, this is for you, Randy. I miss you. And it's just great. However, I really think that Seth freaking Rollins is going to win. I've been subliminally putting that in. If you guys noticed in my tweets, I've been putting in those
I
Seth
see the
Rollins
little
gifts.
self dancing and everything and all that.
So,
but are we gonna do so? Okay, so that means really what we're saying is we're gonna have another Seth Rollins, Becky Lynch couples win. That's really what we're saying.
yeah, and that it is what it is. Yes, I'm not a huge fan of the whole husband and wife. I didn't really like with the the whole Adam Cole, Britt Baker kind of win that they had. But I mean, I think so. Seth Rollins, as whatever he is right now with the outlandish Zicky Dice suits and the dancing and the obnoxious laugh. Like him holding that money in the bank briefcase is just fucking gold.
Yeah.
So I'm all for that.
All right.
All right. So we're running out of time here. Do we see the Usos losing these titles to Street Profits?
No.
Okay.
No. Usos are retaining for sure.
We're good on that. And it's gonna be a great match.
It's gonna be a hell of a match, though. It's gonna be a good match.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Theory versus Lashley. They're building Theory. So, in Theory, just had this big moment with Cena on Monday, which who knows, that might lead somewhere, and I'm fine with that because Theory, he has the ability to hit home runs with every friggin' thing he's given on camera. Everything he did with Vince McMahon, he excelled. He never got nervous. He just played his part beautifully. All the stuff he did in the ring, the stuff at WrestleMania, and then of course we saw him with Cena, and he turns to take the picture, and Cena's just gone. It was really, really
yeah, he seems to be very moldable, and he has really done everything they've asked of him so far. So and yeah, he's done a great job of everything that he's done so far. So yeah, I think Theory is definitely gonna get this one tonight, and he's definitely being pushed as the next big star for sure.
Great. So that's going to be Money in the Bank, which starts in about a minute or two. Before we go, I did want to give a shout out to Mission Pro Wrestling. They have a big show coming up in August, on August 20th. Hard Day's Night. We're going to see Jasmine Allure challenge Holodead for the title. Genocide Island King. Yes. JP Harlow and Simon Miller.
Yes.
That's going to be insane.
Let's go, JP.
JP's kind of an asshole, but whatever.
That's right.
If you go watch the video we mentioned at the top of the show, you'll see why. And then, of course, Danny B versus Black Widow. Danny B has been very impressive in her Oklahoma appearances and Mission Pro. And my understanding is, they're asking her to come back, obviously, for this card. And hopefully we see her in future shows because she's kind of awesome. So I'm looking forward to that. There's other matches being announced now, and we'll probably have some interviews lined up between now and then. But it's 8 o'clock. I'll give everybody a half a second to go get your snacks and run over to my Where can folks find both of you? Deb, where can folks find you on the socials?
At That's So Debonair on the Twitter machine, and at Truth Resist Simplicity on Instagram.
Trenda?
For me, it is at Great Times Ahead. That's a capital GR, the number 8XS ahead on Twitter.
Yep, and I'm PW Front Row across all the socials. On Twitter, we are at Nation's Corner, and all other social platforms at The Nation's Corner. Hope everybody have a great week. Thanks for joining us. We will see you next week.